Okay, so in this video, we're gonna put together our owl lantern, and we're gonna begin by putting the basic structure together. And if you take a look at these pieces here, up here on the little triangular tabs, there are a series of notches, and we've got 1, 2, 3. There's a little box with 4 notches, that's 4. A box with another notch, that's 5. A box with 2 notches, that's 6. And that is the order in which we are going to put these together in. So this process is pretty straightforward. And what you want to do is just bend these triangular tabs over to get them into place. And then you can start at the top or the bottom. I found that it's actually easier to start at the bottom. So I would begin by putting glue on just this first little tab here, just to make sure that we start off perfectly. Just make sure that you've got it nice and aligned and that the bottom is nice and flush. And just hold that in place until it dries. That's going to make the rest of the process that much easier. Okay, so give that just a second to hold. Okay, and then you can kind of flip it over for a second and push some of these tabs down and apply glue. I'd probably just do like 2 at a time. This is a little tedious, but you want to make sure that you don't do too many at the same time, because you want to make sure that each little tab holds nice and strong so that you can follow the natural curve of this base structure. Okay, if you do get a little bit of glue on there, it's not the end of the world, because we are going to be putting panels over this to kind of clean it up. Okay, so I've got 2 more there. I'm going to flip this over, and right now you can flip it over like this. Eventually, once it starts getting more of a curve, it may not be as possible. So definitely take advantage and just work your way up, following that natural curve of this piece, because it's not straight. It is a bit curved. And as long as this seam is nice and aligned, everything will come together for you. Okay, so I'm going to do, I think I would probably get away with doing 3 at this point. And just work your way up, making sure that everything is nice and aligned. Here we go. Just like that. Wonderful. And I'm going to put down, I'm going to try 4 this time. Let's see if I can do 4. Again, the most important thing is that bottom piece, just making sure that that is nice and perfectly aligned. So I'm pushing down with this hand, and I've got my middle finger underneath here so that I can apply pressure to that tab. Makes it so much easier. Okay, and then just follow that natural curve and just push down on those tabs. And I mean, it's barely curving. It'll start to curve more as we get closer to the top. But it's just a very slight curve. Okay. So let's put that down. Let's grab a few more of these tabs. So 4 seem to work okay up at this point here. There we go. And again, just kind of slightly arching this piece as I work my way up, just to make sure that this piece that I'm holding here is following and butting up against that seam on the other side perfectly. There we go. So really all we're doing at this point is putting together the base structure of our owl. Okay, so there you can see how nice that is. And again, there's a little bit of glue that kind of seeped out. I might have gotten some in my fingers, but it's okay because we are putting a panel on all 6 sides of this thing. One side has like a half a panel, but you are going to put feathers on it, so it will be covered up as well. So again, try not to make a mess, but know that if you do, it's really not the end of the world. Okay, there we go. And you see how I'm just kind of following along that curve and getting that glued into place. It's actually a very simple piece. Okay, there we go. All right, so we've got our first piece put together, and all you're really going to do is repeat this process until you've put together all 6 sides. So I'm going to get these tabs ready to go here by just folding them over, and I'll begin the process with the next one here just to show you, but I'm not going to make you sit through the entire process because it's kind of redundant. So in case you forgot where you were, just remember this is 1 and 2. So we're going to take the one with the 3 marks, which is this one here, and we're going to connect that to this piece here, starting at the bottom. And just remember, start with the first tab and just make sure that that gets into place, because that is going to set the tone for the rest of the piece. Just make sure it's nice and flush at the bottom, nice and aligned, and just hold that until it gets a perfect grip, and then you can begin the rest of that, gluing the rest of the tabs in place. Okay. Okay, and again, we can kind of put that on our table, and I'm going to go ahead and do 3. There we go. Grab that. And again, just kind of following the natural curve of the piece, working my way up. You know, and depending on how much glue you put on there will determine how long you have to hold it to get it to grip. Now, I used way less glue that time, and it was enough to keep it in place, and it kind of shortened my hold time or my dry time. Okay, so again, I'm just putting some glue on the next set of tabs. I'm doing 3, you can do 2, you can do 4, you can do more if you're comfortable. I feel like you don't want to do too many, because by the time you get to maybe the 5th or 6th one, the glue will be dry, and then sometimes putting glue on top of glue is just not a good method, because then it doesn't want to stick as well. Okay, so again, just working my way up, following that natural curve, and that is kind of what it should begin to look like. So I'm not going to sit here and make you watch me do this whole thing. Go ahead and just repeat that process until you've got all 6 pieces together, and then I'll meet you towards the end when we go ahead and join everything together. Okay, so as you can see, we've got the basic structure of this thing pretty much done, and I wanted to just go through closing it up with you here. So just as we did before, I'm going to start by getting the bottommost tab in place. Okay, and now this is a little bit more challenging, trying to close it up, but it's not impossible. Just do your best to get everything nice and aligned, just like that. And just hold that first tab in place. Okay, and now with this last piece, it may be kind of helpful to get more tabs going as far as the gluing goes. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to pop this out a little bit, and I'm holding onto this piece here so it doesn't give, and I may just okay, and that's actually got a pretty good grip, so I can let it go. And I'm going to put little dabs of glue on these tabs here. And I did skip one, but we can go back in after and apply glue from the inside. Okay. And I've got a little bit of glue on my fingers there. It helps that the bottom is open, so you can really get your hand in there. And then as you work your way up, it's very helpful just to get your entire hand in there and push from the inside to get those tabs glued. Okay, so I'm going to pull this out a little bit more and kind of skipping another couple tabs there because I don't want to stretch it out. But again, we can always go back in with some glue after this thing is mostly assembled and clean that up. Okay. So I'm kind of holding this very awkwardly so that you can see. You probably want to get a better visual on what you're doing. I'm kind of aiming it at the camera instead of at my eyeballs here for your benefit. Okay. So there we go. And I'm going to pull this out. It looks like I'm skipping another tab there, but that's fine. Even if all the tabs aren't glued, I'm sure this thing will still hold together just fine, but I'm a perfectionist, so I will go back in and clean those up and make this thing perfect. Okay. So there is our owl base. Almost done. Okay, so now you can take a look from the inside. And let me see if I can get some light in there. You can't really see it because it's casting a shadow. And I have about, you can kind of peek through these little holes here and see where you didn't get glue. And just add a little bit of glue to those tabs just to make sure that everything is nice and glued down. Okay. Hopefully you don't have a really big glue bottle to where you can't get it in. I was able to get all of them in. And now I'm going to go back in and just get the rest of these glued down. And that works perfectly. This is a really beautiful piece. We used this pre-embossed textured paper that I believe we got at Michael's. I'm going to say it was at Michael's. Could have been Joann's. I'll have to confirm that for you. Okay, but there is the piece. Okay, and what we can do at this point is glue our top on just to kind of give this thing, make it more sturdy, I guess. Okay, so what I did was I took these triangular tabs here and I just folded them in. Okay, hopefully you can see that. There you go. Folded them in, and we're going to glue this piece right to the top there. Okay, and I think it would be helpful if we started with just one of the triangular tabs here and got glue on that, and got that aligned first to kind of set the tone for everything else so that everything else falls into place beautifully. Make sure you get glue out to the outermost edge there so you've got a nice clean seam. We're actually going to be putting another piece over this, so even if it's not perfect, it's quite all right. You get a second chance to polish it. Okay, so I'm just putting glue on the rest of these tabs, and I'm going to flare them out a little bit so that as I push down, I'm sticking my finger through here, through the eyeball, and as I push down, just kind of pushing from the inside to help it get a grip on those tabs. Okay, so we've got our top on, and at this point, what we can go ahead and do is put our panels on. Okay, so the panels here, they only go on one way, and you can see here these little ruffles here for the feathers. There's two bigger ones in the center and then the smaller ones on the outside, and as you can see, they only go on one way. Okay, so you're going to put glue on this entire piece and just glue that on. Again, if you're not using like a textured piece of paper, you can emboss it if you want, or you can get some of that same paper that we got. I believe they come in packs of 5, and I'm pretty sure we got them at Michael's, because I know Diana likes to go to Michael's more than Joann's. I'm kind of a Joann's guy myself, but I have both of them, and depending on what we're looking for, we'll go to both. So go ahead and put our tab on. I'm putting my finger through the eye hole here just to kind of use that as a guide for the rest of it, and then just simply caress it onto the structure. And then you can kind of put it down like this to push down on those spots just to make sure that it gets a good grip. So there's our panel. Okay, so you're going to repeat that process for this piece here. Okay, and then we've got the back. There's 2 panels for the back, and again, just make sure that you're getting the correct one lined up. Okay, so you're going to put that on there like so, and then you've got one more piece that goes on right there. So get those panels on. Okay, I'm not going to bore you with that. And then there are 2 other panels. I think I just threw them on the ground. I did. There's 2 other panels that go on the sides. Okay, these are like the half panels. Just make sure that it's flush with the bottom and just get it glued on to the side. Okay, so I'll go ahead and do one of them just so that there's no questions. Okay, and I'm just kind of using my fingers at the bottom here just to make sure that I've got it nice and flush, and then I'm working my way up. Just make sure it's centered, and again, you can kind of put it down on your table and just push down on that area like a little seesaw. Okay, so there's that panel. You'll have your back, all 6 sides will have panels on, okay? And at this point, what we can go ahead and do, and you know, it doesn't really matter what order you do this in, I'm just kind of bouncing around here. We can put the top on because we got the panels on. So what we're gonna do is you're gonna fold these like this. They're going together like this, okay? So you can go ahead and put glue on the little ring part and glue that back to back. Okay. And just make sure that gets a good grip. And then you're going to put glue on the bottom of this. And you're going to glue that right to the top. We probably want to have the face of the little ring thing facing forward. Okay, so that little face or the little hole here faces his face or her face, your owl's face. So it's pointing forward or aimed forward. Okay, so that's what that looks like. And then there are 6 of these pieces here. And these are just little decorative pieces. You're going to slide this up until you see where it aligns perfectly and is flush with the panel. So you're going to glue that there and then use that as a guide to help you align the next piece that's adjacent to it. And you're going to do that 6 times. Okay. And also, just want to share a little something with you here. As you can see in our final version here, got the little panels on there, and I've really fallen in love with these liquid pearls. Ron, when he designs the stuff, he really likes to add a lot of embellishments to the pieces, and sometimes the details in his sketches are real small because that's what it requires. It requires a lot of little details, and for me, I prefer to work with these instead of really small pearls or gemstones because it's less tedious for me. Just makes things a lot easier. And I'm trying to look for a pin here so I can clean this thing out. There we go. And all I really did with this was I just put down 6 little dots, just evenly spaced out with the liquid pearls. So it kind of almost gives the illusion of like brass work. It's kind of cool. Did the same thing with this guy here. So, I mean, whatever, if you have little bling that you want to put on there, you can do that. I love the liquid pearls. The gold worked really well for this project. Okay, so with that said, the next thing that we're going to do is talk about the feathers. Okay, and the feathers are really simple. We embossed ours using 3 different embossing folders. I have all the names of the embossing folders on the website. I'm just going to show you the order in which we applied these, okay, and where they're positioned. Now, what you'll notice here, let me go to the other side where we have the panel already on. The first thing we're going to do is, you'll notice there's one set of score lines that run horizontally, and then there's one that's diagonal. What you're going to do is, the tab on here is just a guide. We're going to go ahead and put glue on the back of the tab, okay? And we're going to glue it above the horizontal tab and then flush with that little, flush with the diagonal tab, okay? So that goes on like that. And let that one, before it completely sets, put glue on your other one because we want these wings to be kind of vertical. Okay, we want them to be nice and vertical on our owl and make sure that they're nice and aligned like that. Oops. Okay, so give that a minute to dry. And then I'll share some other tips on how I ruffled up the feathers and got them to look really nice when I train them and things of that nature. So, so that is that piece. Okay, the next piece is this set of feathers. Okay, and again, we're not actually bending at the score mark. Okay, so with this piece, you want to align the score line here with the score line here, and then you want it to butt up against that diagonal score mark, and then kind of use this as a guide to make sure that you have it straight. Okay, so I kind of let that dry as I was describing the process. So I'm going to put on a little bit more glue here. Okay. And we want it just like that. Okay, so give that some time to hold. And again, this one we actually embossed with wood grain. I believe that's by Doris. Okay, so let me get the other one on here. And again, just make sure that they're nice and even. Okay. And you can see how much effect the embossing gives this thing. So I really highly recommend that you emboss it. You don't have to use the same embossing folders we used. Feel free to get creative and, you know, use whatever you want. There's no right or wrong. Okay, so that's gonna go like that. And our next piece is this piece, but it does have this piece glued onto it, okay? And we're gonna take this piece and just put a little bit of glue up at the top. Don't need to put too much up here, just a little bit. And then we're going to glue it below the score mark in the center, just like that. Okay. And then this piece is going to get glued flush with the next little score mark here that's almost towards the center of this thing. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and put glue. I'm going to put glue on this tab here, and we're not bending the tab, just using it as a guide to where to put our glue. And just make sure that you have it nice and lined up with that score mark. Okay, so again, mine are not embossed, and you see how much of an effect that embossing gives this piece. It's pretty remarkable. Okay, and next we have this piece. We're going to go ahead and put glue on the tab, and this one's going to go flush to the top. Just like that. Okay. And that leaves us with this piece here. Okay, now this piece we are going to fold the tab, and we're going to put glue on the back of the tab. And that is going to clean up that top there, because it should fit perfectly and be seamless up at the top. So we're going to hold that in place until it's dry. Okay, so that is what it should look like. Okay, and again, definitely ink. We did some brown ink on two different shades of brown, maybe a little bit of green and red inks on all these feathers. Okay, so let me show you here what I did to the final version. Okay, let me see if I can get a better angle here. Okay, so what I actually did was I trained the bottom tips of the feathers to kind of get them to flare out just at the bottom. Okay, I didn't want to ruffle the feathers too much, and I actually added pop dots underneath, kind of, I'd say about 2/3 of the way down each section, each feather here. I pop dotted it so that it kind of stayed up against the body. Okay, so I don't know if you can see, there's that pop dot there. There's a pop dot there. You can see how it's kind of shining there in the light. There's a pop dot there. You can see it shine there. Added some pop dots there and there, and then pop dots. Let's see if you can see them. Yep, you can kind of see it glistening there. There's a pop dot there. So that's keeping the feathers up against the body. And then we added rhinestones to the bottoms of each of the little tips of the feathers. Okay, so that is how we did the feathers. I can't wait to see what sort of embossing folders you guys use for yours. And really all that's left is to assemble our eyes for our owl. Okay, and that is actually pretty straightforward. So what we're gonna do is this piece gets glued on like this. So this piece gets glued on like this, and these little cutouts, I took these and kind of ruffled them out just to kind of give this a little bit of interest. Okay, before I glued it down. You could do it after. I think it's maybe a little bit easier because you can get your finger in behind there to push this out. Okay, so we'll go ahead and put some glue. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and put some glue on the back of this piece. And I'm just using dots because I've got all these little dimensional ruffles coming out of this piece here. And I don't want to cake this too much, because his face is going to be kind of the focal point, at least the first thing you look at. So you want to make sure that that's nice and neat. Okay, and do your best. I'm starting visually over here just to make sure that that's got a nice border all the way around it, and then the rest of it kind of falls into place. Okay, so that's how that works. Okay, and then we can go ahead and glue this to this piece here. Okay, and that is going to go like that. So you just want to make sure that you get the eyeballs nice and aligned. And I would take a look on the back here just to see where you are going to place your glue. Okay, and just do your best to get that centered. Should be just like that. Okay, and I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to put glue around my eyeballs here. Okay, and just a little bit here, like that. Okay, and then just make sure that you get it right there on the eyeballs. And I made a little boo-boo there. Had a little bit of glue spill out, but that's okay. All right, so that looks pretty good, and I do want to kind of crease this here in the middle, because that is where we're going to apply glue to get his eyeballs on there. Okay, and what we can do at this point, this vellum piece, it doesn't really matter when you put it on, and actually we put ours on the back here. So there's no right or wrong place to put the vellum. You can put it on the front underneath the green layer if you want. I'm just going to put mine on the back. It's just a lot easier. I don't have to worry too much about getting everything perfect. So we'll put our vellum on there. Okay. And then we also embossed his eyeballs, or the green accent on the eyeballs. And I did a little bit of inking on that as well. So that's just going to go right there. So it's flush with the bottom, but there is a little bit of a border around the inside part. Okay, repeat the same process here. Wonderful. Okay, so now I'm going to go ahead and crease this part here. I'm going to grab my owl. And the best way that I found to do this was to just go ahead and take and just kind of cake on a good amount of glue there on the center, and then also just a nice thin line around the eyeballs. And actually, I don't even think that that glue really is necessary around the eyeballs. We just kind of want it to stick in the middle. Okay, so that looks about right. I have my finger through the hole from the inside, and I'm kind of just rubbing it around here just to make sure that I've got good placement so that light shines through. And I'm just applying a lot of pressure here in the center. That glue that I put around the eyeballs actually was not necessary. I just glued just the centerpiece so that his face is a little more flat and less round, because owls' faces are typically kind of flat to begin with. Okay. All right, so last but not least, that just leaves our beak. And I kind of lost a piece here, but there's your beak. There's two of these little teardrop shapes, okay? Those are gonna get glued on to the beak like so. Okay, those are his little nostrils or whatever they are. So you're gonna glue both of yours on there, and then we're gonna fold this in half and then fold our tabs in. And the top two tabs, the top two little triangle pieces, we're gonna glue those together. They're gonna kind of hold everything together for us. You gotta really bend that piece in to get that other piece over. So hold that until it dries. Just be patient. I kind of put a little too much glue in there. Okay, and then the rest of these tabs are gonna get some glue, and we're just gonna add his nose to his face. Just put a little bit of glue on there and bring his face around and place his nose right where you want it, and just hold that down until it dries, and you are all done.
Stay on top of all things Dreaming Tree and engage with us today. Get the latest news and enter in our giveaways on Facebook. Get inspired by following us on Pinterest. Be the first to see our new product launches on Instagram. Do you prefer Twitter? Yep, we're there too. Watch our beautiful product trailers and assembly tutorials on YouTube. For more information, visit www.3dsvg.com. Live, craft, love, and dream.